You are watching Nimasa This Week, the authorized voice for the Nigerian maritime sector. My name is Iretiola Doyle and you are welcome.
A delegation of maritime industry stakeholders, as well as members of the Indigenous Ship Owners Association, ISAN, were at the number 4 Burma Road headquarters of Nimasa on Wednesday, 20th February, for a very crucial meeting with the management of the agency. The meeting was at the behest of the Director General of Nimasa to brief industry stakeholders on some significant developments pertaining to the Indigenous Tonnage Capacity Development Technical Committee set up by Nimasa and ISAN. The Director General, who was unavoidably absent, was represented by the Executive Director, Maritime Labour and Cabotage Services, Barrister Callistus Nwabweze Obi. In his opening remarks, Barrister Obi gave the specific reason for the meeting.
Specifically why we're here is to meet with the shortlisted vessel owners, because we had a series of applications at the very first time. We called for applications to be forwarded. But the agency looked at them and said, those that are single hull vessels will not benefit from this particular program, because the agency is on the verge of phasing out the single hull vessels. So when we finish with this phase, there were people who tried to make case for single hull vessel owners. But we said, let us concern ourselves with the double hull vessels. As we move down the line, we will now have need to look at whatever case they are presenting. So this meeting is specifically for those shortlisted.
The technical committee was set up in 2011 and has painstakingly worked since that time on the modalities for identifying vessel owners who ought to benefit from the financing fund. The secretary of the technical committee spoke about some of the challenges encountered by the committee, especially as regards the issue of single hull vessels.
We requested for ISAN to give us a list of 20 vessels to be repaired. They gave the list. At a point, the DG said, look, we need to bring in non-ISAN members, which we now send out invitations and requested non-ISAN ship owners to bring in list of vessels they want to add to the list, which they did. Initially, the list of vessels that was submitted by ISAN contained about 15 single hull vessels, and that gave us a lot of problem. Because we are aware that single hull tankers are to be phased out soonest, and the issue was, are we going to repair vessels that will soon be phased out?
He then proceeded to read out a list of 20 vessels and shipping companies shortlisted by the technical committee.
The names of companies that finally made the list are 1. AG Butler, Nigeria, with vessel MV Butler Falcon. Japol Oil and Maritime Services with vessel JP Love. Molap Shipping with vessel Mo Power. Jafcon Oil and Gas with vessel MT Breakthrough. Niger Delta Shipping with vessel MV Called Big Glory. Peacegate Oil and Gas with vessel Peacegate's Rescuer. Rank with vessel MV Simon K. Rank again with MV C-Mark. Peacegate Oil and Gas, MV Davidson. Niger Delta Shipping, MV Colby Swift. Lenima Ocean Trawlers Limited, MV Rabo. Phoenix Associates Limited, Sir Vincent. AG Butler Nigeria, Butler Penguin. DLB Marine Services Limited, MV Ebuye Lulu. Seaboard Offshore, Seaboard Bennington. West Africa Offshore, West Africa Wild Sambero. Median Systems Limited, Miden Annie, Primera Shipping, MT Crew, Cotram, Pierre Peter, Integrated Services Limited, Pacific Crest, and the Integrated Services Limited, Caribbean Crest.
The shortlisted vessels and companies still have one more hurdle to cross, and the Secretary of the Technical Committee took time to explain the process as it entails detailed condition surveys of the vessels.
The agency has succeeded in awarding a contract for the survey, the condition survey of these vessels. The first step in the project is to know the condition, the physical condition of these vessels, to ensure that they are still commercially viable for repairs. Today's meeting is to introduce the survey, the class survey company that have won the contract, and to also meet individually with all the beneficiaries of this first phase of the project.
Barrister Obi used the opportunity of the forum to admonish some of the stakeholders present on the need to cooperate meaningfully with the agency for the overall good of the nation. He was particularly critical of the activities of ISAN against the best intentions of Nimasa.
In the last 1 month, so many things have been, terrible reports have been written about the CDFF. Even this publication, despite the fact that I attended ISAN meeting and explained to them in clear details the stage we're in with regards to this condition survey, yet they are churning out reports in the papers and generally behaving as if this program has been discontinued.
A member of ISAN, and who also happened to be the chairman of the subcommittee of ISAN on the ISAN Nimasa Technical Committee on Indigenous Ship Capacity Development, Engineer Emmanuel Ilori, expressed optimism that the scheme will be the panacea to the issues of increased participation of indigenous shippers in cabotage.
I think it's very important to identify that it is not a gift for everybody. It is to actually identify a standard where we can do things and how we can do things better, so that once this is successful, there will be other stakeholders who will benefit from the system, because this is just a pilot project anyway. The other vessels will join in the scheme once we begin to make sure that we demonstrate that it is successful, it is working. We have set the technical standards for the operation of Nigerian ships.
Nimasa's Director of Cabotage, Mrs. Oluwari Etete, gave a background to the issues that led to the initiative being embarked on.
The main objective is for us to be able to repair some of the vessels, because the Iceland people are complaining their vessels are all bad. So the agency felt that, okay, since most of your vessels are bad, the Act made provision for it. We can take some of these vessels, repair it under the Act, and then ensure that it meets the specification of the IOCs, so that you'll be able to get jobs. So it's a wonderful initiative that we've started.
She then went on to underscore the sustainability of the initiative.
It will be continuous, because it's going to be a revolving. Whatever loan we give to the Iceland people, we're going to give them some time within which to pay up. Once the vessel is repaired and then you've started working, you now start paying, and then from the payment that you make, we go back into the treasury and other people will benefit for it. So it's going to be continuous, and revolving. And as long as it's revolving, other people are benefiting, it's going to be for a very long time. And before you know it, we have a lot of vessels in the country.
Now, the marine environment is a very delicate one, and Nimasa bears the responsibility of ensuring that the marine environment within the Nigerian territorial waters is up to the standards set by the International Maritime Organization. To this direction, Nimasa recently released a set of regulations for the marine environmental management. In the first report on our show this week, Nimasa will bring us up to speed on issues related to the new marine environmental management regulations. This report was prepared prepared by Patrick Doyle and is read from our studios.
The issue of environmental protection, and particularly the marine environment, is a collective responsibility that involves a wide range of institutions and groups. Nimasa, on its part, is acutely aware of this fact and has ceaselessly worked in tandem with the relevant line NDAs and industry stakeholders. The current Director General of Nimasa, Ziakede Patrick Akpobulukemi, is of the view that to consider sustainable development against the backdrop of a green economy without including clean oceans into the matrix would amount to an exercise in futility. It is in recognition of the importance of a conducive marine environment that Nimasa, as an agency, upgraded the Marine Environmental Management Unit into a full-fledged department with a director at its helm. Mrs. Juliana Gunwa, the director of the department, obliged us with the backstory to the upgrading of the unit into a department in 2008.
Because of the need to ensure that we are able to comply with the IMO requirements on ensuring that our waters are kept clean and pollution-free from all forms of pollution emanating, especially from vessels.
Sometime in 2012, the Honorable Minister of Transport and the Director General of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, Nimasa, in the exercise of powers conferred on them by the Merchant Shipping Act of 2007 and the Nimasa Act of 2007, issued a set of marine environmental management regulations. The new regulations, which cover 12 major areas, were unveiled at a stakeholders forum held at the Best Western Hotel, Victoria Island. Barrister Akabogu, who consulted for Nimasa in preparing the regulations, made a PowerPoint presentation of the new regulations.
Now, these are the conventions. There are 12 conventions. Of the 12 conventions, 11 have their origin in the Merchant Shipping Act, and one has its origin in the Nimasa Act of 2007.
Nigeria's membership of the International Maritime Organization, IMO, as well as the fact that Nigeria is a signatory to many IMO conventions and treaties, confers a responsibility on Nimasa, the implementation agency of the Nigerian government, on the ratified and domesticated IMO conventions. Mrs. Juliana Gunwa expatiates on this point.
There's a need for the agency to ensure effective implementation of the provision of those IMO conventions Nigeria has ratified. More so, that Nimasa is the focal point of relevant conventions, of the implementation of the relevant conventions Nigeria has ratified. And of course, looking at our marine environment, we found out that it's like a dumping, without even being told, everything is dumped into our waters. Because of course, it's been seen that it's not been effectively monitored. So it's as a result of that, that the agency felt the need that we have to ensure we prevent indiscriminate dumping of any substance, especially the substances that are not degradable, that are not friendly with the marine environment, into the ocean, into our waters.
IMO conventions usually apply to a category of vessels. However, it is possible that non-convention vessels are sometimes obligated to observe some of the regulations covered by the IMO conventions and treaties.
Some of the provisions of the convention still apply even to non-convention vessels. But on some of the regulations that were approved, the one that has to do with the sea protection levy affects vessels of 100 GT, gross tonnage, and above. So any vessel that is within 100 gross tonnage and above are affected by the sea protection levy.
It is to be expected that different maritime jurisdictions have peculiar issues. We thus set out to find out which of the many IMO conventions were most relevant to the Nigerian maritime domain.
Nimasa, for instance, with that regulation, is going ahead to ensure we put in place offshore reception facility so that vessels that come offshore, before now we don't have a statutory one in place. We have people, private people in and out taking waste from vessels offshore, but it is Nimasa's responsibility to ensure that we have offshore receptacles offshore. So it is a fallout from the MAPO convention. That is one of the requirements under MAPO. We are concerned majorly with offshore because for the shore, we already have the Nigerian ports who provides port reception facility. But when you look at OPRC, that is on the International Convention on Response and Preparedness on issues of oil spill. And for this, we have to draw a regulation on that.
While one may be of the opinion that absolutely no dumping from vessels is permissible, under one of the conventions, certain wastes are indeed allowed to be dumped into the ocean.
Wastes that are not hazardous, that are degradable. We have that we have dredge materials, the fish waste, sewage, vessel platform, and etc. Such, because they are allowed to be done because they do not constitute any hazards to the living organisms in the water.
The Marine Environmental Management Department at Nimasa is saddled with very sensitive responsibility, which requires painstaking monitoring and examination of paperwork. The introduction of the new regulations, while seen in many discerning quarters as welcome, may be viewed as yet another bureaucratic bottleneck by others. So the question we put to Mrs. Juliana Agunwa was, how have stakeholders taken to the regulations?
The only permanent thing in life, I think, is change. And even as all human beings, when there's change, there's likely to be either positive or negative reaction when there's a change, which is expected of the maritime industry when the issue of these regulations came on board, especially the ones that are that will require us to have a self-funding mechanism in place for the protection of our waters, which is the Sea Protection Levy.
Seen as the levy is important as a self-funding mechanism to provide the needed offshore receptacles and other facilities, as well as manage the entire process, Nimasa has thought it fit to involve the private sector via a PPP arrangement.
And we know at times it's very difficult for government to handle all this all alone. So Nimasa is going it through a PPP partnership, because with that we are sure that and it has to be on no cure, no pay basis. So we have to be sure that they are doing exactly as we desire, as we require them to do. That is the provision.
Like any set of regulations, there are sanctions in place for non-compliance. However, Nimasa is not too keen about emphasizing the sanction regime, which involves fines, penalties, as well as compensation. Mrs. Susan Asagwara, the Deputy Director in the Marine Environmental Management Department, explains.
So right now, we have not started implementing several of them because of the fact that we really need to still interact with them, because we believe in working together. There's no way we can deal with these issues with just carrying hammering them, because for now we have realized the fact that internationally we are all talking of even having incentives for certain things, and it's not always penalty. We have penalties, but we haven't started implementing many of this because of the fact that we still have to give them time to adjust to the new things.
Dr. Mrs. Felicia Morgo, the Assistant Director in the Marine Environmental Management Department of Nimasa, filled us in on the department's strategy to carry along the critical stakeholders in the exercise of the department's functions.
We communicate with these our stakeholders by way of having interactive fora. We have workshops with them, and we have an open door policy here in Nimasa, so that if they have any issue they need clarification on, they can always feel free to come and ask us, so that we ensure that though we are regulating them, that we don't leave the stick all the time. Most cases we offer them carrots, but where they fail to eat the carrot and they invite the stick, we use the stick. Like next week actually, and just telling you how we relate with our stakeholders, we have this workshop on London Protocol of 1996, which is actually a protocol to the London Convention on prevention of pollution.
Nimasa, by the very nature of its mandate, is duty-bound to build mutually beneficial relationships with a cross-section of institutions and establishments. Therefore, synergy is a very top priority for the agency. The approach adopted by Nimasa so far has been open and methodical. The report you're about to see will give us a deeper insight into some of those institutions that Nimasa has been able to co-opt into a partnership of progress.
By virtue of Nimasa's peculiar mandate, the agency is obliged to foster close relations with a wide variety of institutions and establishments. The nature and strategic importance of the maritime domain and maritime activities to the Nigerian economy is such that Nimasa is duty-bound to form alliances with institutions in the private sector covering a wide variety of interests, like the Indigenous Ship Owners Association, the Nigerian Chamber of Shipping, Fishing Trawler Owners Association, International Oil Companies, and the Chartered Institute for Logistics and Transport. It would be fair to say that Nimasa has succeeded in creating a positive synergy with all these groups and institutions.
The chamber is made up of private stakeholders in the shipping industry, those that Nimasa regulates. So they have to understand what is cabotage, what are their rights under the cabotage law, what is expected of them. So the Chamber of Shipping helps Nimasa from that aspect.
I would say that the Institute and Nimasa can jointly come together to develop human capacity in the maritime industry.
A lot of the time, the headquarters of Nimasa at Burma Road, Apapa, has played host to various stakeholder interest groups who visit and invariably come with either a shopping list or some urgent issues requiring Nimasa's support and attention.
We are here basically to seek your assistance in covering this activity because we know that you have a marine guard that you use to protect our waters.
I can count over 25 ships that were built in 2011 that are here carrying cargoes and competing with Nigerian ship owners. Not a problem. Let them operate. We need the foreign ship owners to transfer the technology to us, but there must be a level playing field.
Nimasa, under the current DG, Ziakede Patrick Abobolo Kemi, has demonstrated a great capacity to understand the issues confronting maritime activities and is always ready to face the issues squarely.
I am never ever discouraged, and I'm pretty sure that things are going to be better.
The last 2 years has seen an upbeat mood among stakeholders as Nimasa appears to have won the confidence of more than a few stakeholders in the maritime sector.
He appears to be a man that has the spirit of saying, let's change from the norm, let's change from the way we've been coming from, let's see if we can do it better.
He took his time to understand the industry, and I can see that he's making bold steps now to address relevant issues.
Even with the vote of confidence from major stakeholders in the maritime sector, Nimasa has no intention of resting on its oars. the management is determined more than ever before to forge on until the Nigerian maritime sector takes its place in the Committee of Nations and Nigeria can rightly be described as a true maritime giant in the world. This sentiment is eloquently captured by the words of Nimasa's DG, Ziakade Patrick Akpobulukemi.
I will leave local players far better than the way I met them. I will leave the security situation far better than the way I met it, beyond the imagination of the listener. I will protect the marine environment far beyond the way I met it.
Thank you so much for your questions and comments. Now, please remember, Nimasa This Week is an interactive show. We need to know what it is you're thinking. If you have any questions or comments or any criticisms to make, kindly just email them to the address showing on your screen. Now, I'm going to be here, same time, same station next week. Till then, I'm wishing you smooth sailing and bon voyage.